Everyone excited?
Yes.
I am so excited to be here, and I hope that you all are too. My name is Leslie Stevens. I'm a marketing director at SunTrust. I'm the director of purpose marketing. We hope that you will go and join our booth upstairs. I got to get my plug in. I got the mic. We have launched the On Up movement at SunTrust, and it's all about financial confidence, free information, don't have to pay a thing. So go check us out. But I am here to introduce our moderator, Pamela France, and she is the first person that you see when you walk into SunTrust. It's really interesting because yesterday I introduced someone who was from a different company, and I had to read about this gentleman, but I don't need to read about Pamela because she was actually the training coordinator on my first day, December 2nd, 2012. I remember the day and thought, this woman is dynamic. So you get to see a little bit of the greatness. I just told her, you operate in your gift, and you will see her do that. So a little bit about this session. We're going to have a panel discussion of our experts here. I think you'll find a lot of great value in hearing them speak and share their gifts as well. And then we'll go for about 45 minutes. Then we'll have about a 30-minute tabletop discussion. We have a leader at each table. Raise your hand if you're a leader. Okay? We may need to do what we did yesterday, which is merge tables. We'll play that by ear. I'm good at tap dancing or break dancing, but I won't show you. And then we will do a board share, okay? So everyone will think of one big idea. I'll come back and remind you of what it is we're doing. But keep in mind, as you hear this panel discussion today, what is an idea that you could share? How could you take and bring this to life, what we're talking about here, unlocking the economic value of an aging workforce? So share your perspectives and listen to these. Thank you so much, and Pamela.
All right, thank you, Leslie. Yes, as Leslie said, when she mentioned I'm one of the first faces that you see when you're a new teammate to SunTrust is because I do the onboarding experience for new hires. I'm one of the teammates that do that. I also do, I may touch any teammate that is in a branch when you go in a branch to do business in SunTrust Banking Center. I'm also this region's management trainer, and I'm a master webinar and virtual learning trainer. So I'm just excited to be on the panel here with some experts that's going to help us engage in conversation around unlocking the economic value of an aging workforce. And I'm going to allow each panel member to introduce themselves and tell you a little bit about them.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Carolyn Clevenger, and I'm here representing Emory University in the Nell Hudson Woodruff School of Nursing. I'm the Associate Dean for Clinical and Community Partnerships. And by training, I'm a nurse practitioner specializing in gerontology. And I direct a clinic, which is a medical home clinic, exclusively for people living with dementia and their families.
Good afternoon. I'm Deborah White, and I am a recent graduate of the Hope Entrepreneurship Training Program. As of last year, March of 2016, I retired from the state of Georgia with 24 years of service there, as well as, and upon my retirement, I started my own consulting business, True Path Consultants, and which we're located in Peachtree City, and we provide business consulting services, strategic planning, strategic sourcing, training, contract management, acquisition management, supplier engagement. And so I'm very happy with that, and I'm very grateful for the help that Operation Hope has given me.
Great. Hi, everybody. Good afternoon. My name is Carol Lambert. I'm Director of Outreach and Strategic Partnerships for Treasury's MyRA program, My Retirement Account. I feel like a little bit of broccoli up here today on this panel. I know we're talking about unlocking the economic value of an aging workforce. But who wants to work forever? Raise your hand. Who never wants to retire? Never? Okay, let me pose it a different way. Who wants to have to work forever? Raise your hand. Okay, so I'm going to be talking more about, in addition to valuing our workforce and our aging colleagues, that sounds, but also making sure that we're prepared for that next life, the next life after, so that you can enjoy and do what it is that you want to do in those years. So Very happy to be here today. I love Atlanta and very grateful to be a part of this panel.
All right, so thank you. Now, I'm quite sure that all of you all know that the aging, that older workers in the aging economies are finding it or failing to find viable livelihoods as our traditional industries continue to evolve. And we're finding that the aged employee is being out-aged for many reasons. Some of those reasons are perceived skill gaps, and some of the reasons are that they are being replaced by younger and cheaper workers. And adding to that dilemma, many companies are just reluctant to hiring the more mature worker. And I have some factors that feed into that or contribute to the older workers remaining in the workforce. And they are for personal fulfillment, financial need, increased longevity, mental acuity, and rising costs of retirement. So speak on some of these factors and how they impact the more mature workers staying in the workplace.
So I don't know what the opposite of broccoli is. I'll be the candy. I'll start with the candy. We'll start with the chocolate. So I come probably from maybe a bit more optimistic perspective, and I am speaking to you through the lens as a nurse and at a school with heavy, implementation science emphasis. So we sort of think about this as nursing science. So I'm going to make some sweeping generalizations about the aging workforce and about older adults broadly based on longitudinal population studies. And I'll just focus on one piece, which is health-related quality of life. So we know when we measure health-related quality of life, and this is self-reported information from older individuals, and I'm using air quotes because sometimes people group people 55 and older or 65 and older depending on the study design. There are two generalizations that I would say that we find, and one is in the physical domain of physical health and well-being. So there are higher rates of disability. There are some age-related changes that require some adaptation and doing things a bit differently. It is true that there are higher incidence of certain diseases, and many of our top 10 diseases or top 10 causes of death, at some point, age is becoming the primary risk factor. So Alzheimer's disease, of course, is what I do every day, and so that's a prime example. But other things like age-related macular degeneration, cancer, and so forth. And we hear, I think, a lot about that, the decline, the physical needs, how can we adapt, how can we accommodate? But what we don't hear as often is about the emotional well-being that's reported on that same survey. And that is that older individuals broadly have less of this lability, these big swings from elation to misery, right? They've seen a lot of things before. Things don't tend to, cause that immediate emotional surge one direction or the other. They've been exposed to many different types of people. They tend to get along with more types of people and be a bit more flexible. And so in terms of their people smartness or their emotional intelligence, it's actually much better. And in fact, so I'm in the middle of Patrick Lencioni's Ideal Team Player, one of his more recent books. One of the three characteristics of the ideal team player, someone who is people smart. So in that way, they actually make ideal employees and ideal team members. But there are some things you have to consider in terms of framing their work. One of the examples that I shared with the group is, I'm coming from healthcare, and I think about the nursing workforce. Large workforce, one of the most expensive workforces in healthcare. And we have an older nursing population, some specialties more so than others. So here at Emory Healthcare in Atlanta, we have a program called the Silver Program. And it's the input in terms of how we designed it was based on our older nurses who said, here are the things that I need. So if you think about hospital nursing in particular, you should be thinking about 12-hour shifts, on your feet quite a bit, several patients in your patient assignment. There's a lot of steps on those Fitbits, right? And so those nurses have said to us, the things that would make sense for me have to do with maybe doing a 6-hour shift and splitting shifts with people. Maybe I want to work certain times of day that you wouldn't necessarily, they don't want to be there at 6:45 on Clifton Road or in one of our campuses. And so we've been able to make what we call accommodations for this group through the Silver Program. And so I'll just kind of leave it there, that there is quite a bit that they offer to us in any industry, and in my industry in particular in nursing, there are certainly ways that we can adapt and make it work for them because we need experienced nurses. We need nurses, period. We're in the middle of a shortage.
All right, thank you.
Yes, I would like to say, and to add to that, that the value of an aging employee in the workplace is very great. Several employers have adopted programs such as that to attract those aging employees to stay in the workplace area because of their experience and expertise. And that's very good. But there's another side of that, is that some people within the workplace, their skills have become a little bit rustic or not as useful, and so they may have a hard time finding their niche. And I think there needs to be an awareness that from time to time, we do throughout our career path, we need to take inventory of where we are and what we need to maintain our competitiveness or our viability within that particular industry. We were talking earlier, and one of the things is that, especially if you've been an employee engaged in employment for several years, and to find yourself suddenly faced with competing with other work opportunities in the work sector, that may be a challenge, because the way we compete for jobs and the way people are hired are quite different than what it was 10 years ago, 15 years ago. And so there needs to be some retooling of those skills and some awareness of how you can present yourself and be more relative in the workplace, as opposed to maybe the way it was done 10 or 15 years ago. But I think just like anything else, you need to take a look at it, and if you still want to use it, you need to think about how it can be repurposed so it'll be useful within the workplace.
Okay. So a lot of really great points there. We know that folks are living longer, they're living healthier lives, so they're more vibrant and more physically able. Even the work that we do today is a little bit different, right? We're a lot more white-collar jobs that require less physical, less strenuous from a physical perspective. So we definitely have that. The experience and the wisdom and the value for longevity on a job, loyalty to a company, we see from older colleagues is a little bit different, right, than what we see from millennials coming in who want to grow. And that's great. There's nothing wrong with that. But they grow, they soak it up, and they're ready to move on. They're ready to get promotion. So in the meantime, your older workers are there. They have the experience that they're able to impart on those younger workers. Keeping your talents and skills fresh, absolutely an important thing. Now, in the midst of taking care of your employer and taking care of the new folks that are coming in and training folks to come up, I do want to encourage all of us to also think about how to reinforce ourselves, right, as we do age in the workplace. And part of that is taking care of ourselves financially. So one of the things that we were talking over some stats earlier, and the National Institute for Retirement Studies found that for workers who are close to retirement age, in that 55 to 64 age range, the median savings they have is only in the range of $12,000. Now, I get it, not everyone needs the same amount of money to retire. Maybe you're going to move from the city to the country. Maybe you already, own that vacation home and you're going to turn that into your permanent residence down in Florida, and you're going to live a quiet life. But me, I think I probably will need a little bit more than $12,000. So how do we get folks to think about that earlier so that you can fortify yourself with additional training, skills building, without that worry that you would otherwise have financially. So again, if you have, we find that one of the biggest impediments to retirement saving is whether or not you have it at work. So if you have it at work, fantastic. Do the 401k, max out your matching. That's great. But if you don't, and you need something to need something or need something to supplement, then that's where broccoli again comes in. MyRA is a retirement savings option that could be available to folks like that.
All right. I want to let you know that we will open the floor anytime a comment is made from the panel and you have a question that is stimulated from something that is said. Just raise your hand and we'll all be more than welcome to address your question at that particular time, okay? I have a statistic here from the 2015 Gallup poll that says 37% of non-retired Americans don't expect to stop working until after 65. So based on what you were just saying, if the median range is $12,000 that most people have saved up to that time, and what if there are life events that causes us to go into our savings or to our retirements? How do we take that first step in making those plans so that we're better prepared to retire and don't have to work all of our lives?
Well, I'm hoping that that's one of the questions that we can hear from the professionals in the audience on as well when we move into that phase of this event. But you're exactly right. We can be faced with, and who knows what's lurking out there, what's looming. And again, I feel like sort of a wet blanket on this whole thing. But to the extent that you can shore yourself up financially, it just, it decreases the worry for you. You can enjoy your grandkids, or if you don't have maybe you want to travel. But those things, you greatly reduce your ability to take advantage of those pleasurable things later on in life when you're worried about money. I think we all know the earlier you get started with saving, the better. So I think every single person in this room has a job to do on that front. I think we all have perhaps millennial colleagues, even at work, that we can encourage. Are you in the workplace retirement plan? Are you maxing out on the matching funds? We all have kids or nieces or nephews. What are you doing now? I think I saw something, so we all know about sort of the 10%. There's sort of, we've heard for several years now that when you're saving, you should be saving at least 10% of what you make. And that's great. That's a great guideline for someone in their 20s when they're getting started. If you let the young folks start with saving 10%, the longer you wait, when you get into your 30s and your 40s, 10% is probably not going to do it for you anymore. So one of the things you want to do is you want to invest in others, each one teach one kind of thing. So pass that wisdom that we all have, pass that wisdom on, and get other folks to start as early as possible. And another thing that I would say is start with where you are today, but do start. There are a number of ways that you can reach out to nonprofit financial educators. If you're thinking about buying a house, there are HUD-approved housing counseling agencies that will work with you at no cost to you. Not only will they help you with that home purchase, but also in creating a more holistic budget. When you're thinking about things during open enrollment season is a good example as well. We're always thinking about our health care benefits and what kind of health plan do we choose? Is it an HMO? Is it, are we going to dial the deductibles up or down? That's a really good time of year to take a step back and say, okay, what about insurance? What about what I'm saving for retirement? So we all have to take that personal responsibility for ourselves, start where you are, and then I would also say each one teach one.
Yeah.
Yes.
Can I also
Sure.
add to that? So to the question of people anticipating that they will continue working, but then life happens, and it happens all of the time, of course. We talked earlier today about the thinking about a career as in developmental stages. The idea that, you're going to do high school, you're going to do whatever you do training-wise after that, you're going to start this career and that's what you're going to be in. is probably an outdated idea, because the reality is people shift not just jobs but careers, and they sort of translate skills from one position into other positions. And I don't want to talk too much about that because you're such an excellent example. But, and the millennials who are sort of in that phase where they are looking to grow. What am I going to learn from this position? I'm going to go to the next. You have different goals and desires mid-career, different in late career, and then different in potentially an encore career. And it's perfectly an acceptable thing. And the reality is, depending on your profession, when you age out of that profession, it's going to be a wide variation. So I'm originally from West Virginia. Most people think about West Virginia as coal mining country. They don't really offer many jobs in West Virginia, but we still think of West Virginia as coal mining country. Nonetheless, you age out of coal mining around 40, usually on disability, right? And meanwhile, here I am in this academic institution at Emory. I have many colleagues in their 70s, and they're thriving, right? So just different professions offer different opportunities and allow you to do different things, and it's perfectly acceptable and really more common, I think, than we realize, that people shift entirely into a different line of work.
And I can say that because about 10 years ago, I found myself doing one thing, and then we had a major reorganization, which my division was disbanded. And so I landed in somewhere, I wasn't real happy initially, but what I did learn to do, I embraced it, and I became an expert at it. I became a practitioner that was well respected in my organization. Last February of 2016, my organization was ranked the #1 public procurement office in the nation. And so learning, and that was a team effort, but just learning how to embrace a not what I perceived a not favorable condition, but when I got my feelings together, I said, I'm going to be the best I can be. And I took classes to strengthen my skills. I already had a strong skill set, but I took classes to strengthen my skills, and I humbled myself and became a sponge for learning and applied those tools. And now that craft that I learned 10 years ago, that's what I do as a business. So that's a success story, as being displaced and engaging and embracing where you're at, and look around yourself and reach out and take advantage of those things available to you. One thing also I wanted to say, I'm waiting until next year when I turn 62, because I can take and I can audit classes at the technical colleges here in Georgia to further strengthen my skill set.
Right.
At no cost.
At no cost to me. And so those are the things and the opportunities that we got to embrace. During my briefing for retirement, they told me that I can expect to live to somewhere between 90 and 95. What are you going to do between then? Is your retirement income going to be able to sustain you all the way up to 95? You got to think about those things. And just really take inventory. And the things that we like the best, those are the things that we tend to do well. And sometimes it may be time to readjust, strengthen your skill set, and so you can be not only just productive, but successful and a leader in whatever you do.
Well said.
That's a good point, because we're finding now that people are living longer. And while we're talking about making sure we're financially stable or comfortable in our later years in life, we have to make sure that we're physically well too. Because we can have all the money in the bank, but if our health is failing us, and then we have to depend on someone else to provide the elder care for us, then we could be placing a heavier burden on those that are, our children or grandchildren or whoever. So we have to make sure all the scales are balanced here. I saw a hand
Right
back.
over here.
We'll come.
Yes.
Deborah, I experienced the same thing. I had a corporate buckhead job, and I went through a reorganization, which basically meant that I had reached the top of my salary grade and I was near retirement age. Not that my skill set wasn't important,
Right.
nor was I not doing a good job.
Right.
Just that this is the way X plus Y equals Z. One question to you. You said you're able to, after a certain time, be able to audit what particular
Classes.
colleges?
The technical college system here in Georgia, once you're 62, you don't turn in grades and get, do the work and get graded for it or get credit for the grades, but you can sit through that class for that entire semester and acquire knowledge to help you to be more competitive in the workplace and to be more relevant. From what I understand, technical colleges here in Georgia.
And I think it's state
I think it's
colleges
state
too, because
universities.
my
And maybe
husband-
state colleges too.
Yep.
And they're saying it's state colleges. So I plan to take advantage of that.
All right, we have another hand over here. Wicked.
Good afternoon. My name is Beverly Rice, and when I look at the economic value of an aging workforce, I look at someone like myself. Most of the time when we look at the aged, we see more stability. So it does have economic value. And I'm not going to down, the millennials today because they feel like they've been downed enough through this session, but and they do add value also. But there are employees who feel that they can terminate or end the job for those who are getting older, perhaps at retirement age, and what it basically boils down to, I can hire 2 people for what I'm paying you. And I don't have to pay them, where starting salary, I'm just giving them starting salary, and you've been here and they can do the exact same thing. And they can do the exact same thing. But I'm here to say not as well. We think that they can, but they don't have the experience. And one of the things I've noticed too about younger people, they don't have the stability that older people have, the stick-to-itiveness that older people have. They miss a lot of days, more days at work. Older people, hey, look, I'm going to work every day. The sun is shining, it's raining outside, it's snowing outside, I'm going to work. Younger people, hey, you know what? It's raining outside, I'm not going today. So I think that we do have a lot of value when it comes to the economy. We're more willing to buy a house and stay in it, whereas, younger people may just say, well, hey, I'm going to rent, for a while. So they don't have that value. They don't know the value of staying in one area, one district long enough to even know who their council people are. So, I think there is a great difference in the value that the aging workforce can bring to the society more so than if you are a lot younger.
And while we're getting the mic to someone, I just want, and that's a very good point, and I think the key is for employers and even employees in the workforce to learn how to leverage that. I had the fortunate, before I retired, I was fortunate enough to work with someone, a very fine young man. I have a son the same age as he was. But whereas I had the experience and the wisdom and the technical know-how, he was very savvy far as technology is concerned. And we made a great team because he complimented me in that area and I complimented him. And he was like a sponge. He wanted to learn everything that I knew. And we still keep in contact to this day. So I think it's really learning how to leverage that and look at the value of people. Look at the value of that person that is that older person in the workforce. They definitely bring that experience, that wisdom, that knowledge, and that younger person who can teach us how to do things differently and more efficiently. And so I just think just learning how to leverage all of those dynamics and realizing that that the diverse people bring a very good solution to in the work environment.
Yes.
Okay, first, I would like to kind of reset the stage a little bit. And since we're talking about unlocking the value of the aging workforce, let's look at what their values, what they came up with, what they believe in. They believe if I go to work, I do the right thing, I'm committed to the company, I'm committed to the job, the company's going to take care of me, and I'm going to work hard, I'm going to teach my kids, I'm going to do everything I'm supposed to because that's the contract. So we start with that. The next thing is the contract was broken. Okay? It's cheaper to let you go and replace you with younger people. Okay, that happened. Now, what's the impact with a person that was raised and believed that? The emotional trauma, the identification with the belief system that if I do follow this system and follow this pattern, right? It's like, whoa, that's traumatic. Some people recover, some don't. Right? If you got money, you could go do whatever you want. But even then, many people, their identity is the commitment to the workforce, the commitment to the job. I get up every morning and go to work. Might be hurting, might not feel like it, might be inconvenient, but I'm committed.
Right.
Now we want to unlock that value, the commitment, the persistence. It's really the commitment. It's the love. It's the embracing. That's what's really there. So how do you unlock that? Well, first you've got to figure out how for a company, the companies, to realize the values there and figure out a way to appreciate, to show that that value has been important. Because the companies don't, if they're not, like, look, it's still cheaper. You know, it's like, hey, how you doing? Come by, we can have coffee, okay? So the gap is still there. But what I'm thinking is, when companies realize we need the millennials for the things they bring, and we also need the agent for what they bring, the stability, because the young people are on their career path. There's a natural progression when you would do, everybody, when you go through, you learn, you grow, you move. That's normal for a young person.
Yes. Now, those are some very valid points that you've made. We also have to realize that the economic environment that we're living in is much different today than it was 15, 20 years ago. Times are changing. Things are changing at a more rapid pace than they were then. So the world that we're living in now is more technology driven for most of our jobs. And yes, we bring a lot of experience to the workplace, but what's really driving success in the workplace in a lot of industries is technology.
We have a hand back there. Somebody's trying to get our attention.
Okay, I saw this hand right here. Give it 30 seconds.
If I can just add, is it okay? Just before you comment, I apologize. So,
Sound person.
and I really valued your position, and I saw it. It's true for me, and it was absolutely true for my parents. And my mom would tell you every day, I worked for 32 years at General Foods, and I finally, but the economic value, I think we have to turn it slightly so that we can look through the lens, like you're saying, of the employer and shore up our value to the organization. Now, some of the things that we're seeing, they've tried all sorts of things. They've tried, there was at one point execs and the, muckety-mucks, everybody had offices, depending on what your position is. And then they went to open spaces, everybody was in cubes. And then they went to, play areas where you had putting greens and pool tables, and there are companies like the tech startups that still have that sort of thing, and dry cleaners. Well, they, all of those shifts in the way you run business is okay. It could make people happy, but really what that is about is increasing productivity and increasing the value to that organization. So over time, the value systems for these companies have shifted a little bit, and we just have to stay in tune to that and understand what value means to them, and then we can be that. We demonstrate how to be that. Sorry to interrupt you.
I just want to quickly, two things. Number one, diversification is always prudent. In other words, the grandmother told you, don't put all your eggs in one basket.
That's right.
That's number one.
Right.
And I mean that diversifying your investment, and I want to talk about the investment side, your investments based on some kind of risk-adjusted asset allocation model, and that's just 7 basic principles. You got third grade education, you could understand it, is a beginning. And then using business combinations and different relationships, if you have value-added skill sets, then looking at how we can create business combinations amongst the resources and ourselves on an entrepreneurial standpoint, young, old, and technical, non-technical, and reapproaching the marketplace, saying that we, as a company now, that's diversified in its human capital, can provide you X, Y, Z value without the benefit, cost of the benefit package, and then you diversify your own particular investment portfolio to keep you going in the long run, and somehow somebody's got to invest in the training to teach us how to do that, those business combinations, and unlock the value. And that's all I have to say.
Well said.
Okay, well, let's think about this. I read that with 70% of experienced professionals planning to work during retirement, how can they be absorbed into the already competitive market? With 70% of experienced professionals planning to work during retirement, some leave the workforce and they go into employment outside of where they already are, then how can they be absorbed into an already competitive job market? I retire and I'm seeking employment at another organization.
This is a conversation we had today also. Our group was together for a little while we waited for the session to start, and it got what was very stimulating discussion, as you can tell. And one of the things that came up repeatedly is that the value add of that knowledge and expertise translates to the bottom line. And sometimes you have to do a little bit more work to track that, to say there is measurable impact, whether it's turnover in an industry with high turnover, or for me, and I'll just use my specific department, our School of Nursing is #1 in NIH research funding among schools of nursing. That's been a long-standing goal for us. How did we get there? We have experienced, seasoned, previously successful grantsmen who are not writing grants themselves to get that type of award. They're coaching our junior faculty to get it. So there's a very measurable impact. And of course, grants to a university is part of our bottom line. It's a big portion, actually, of our budget. And so there's a very clear translation to what they're doing, and they're both post-retirement age, and they're both working less than full time, but they're contributing a very specific skill set that this organization needs. And I think Deborah actually had a great, conversation about putting that knowledge first when you're talking to employers in that phase.
Right. It's very important that people who are the older workforce or more mature workforce that are seeking employment has to put their expertise in the forefront. I'll give you an example. At some point near the end of my career, I tried to transition. Now, I found it difficult. Number one, when you look at my resume, if you do a chronological resume, wow, she's really old. She graduated in such and such and such and such, and she's been here for 20 years, she's been here for 9 years. But what you need to do is take those important skill sets, make it more of a functional presentation of your skill rather than a chronological presentation, because that just stands out. We can count, boom, 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 boom. Oh, you know, they're 50, 60 years old. You know, there's in this society, age a lot of times is associated with being old-fashioned, outdated, not relevant. But that's not the case anymore. And so, but a lot of people haven't gotten that message. You're dealing with the human person. A lot of people haven't gotten that message. They want the young, the fresh, the full of ideas. But the thing that society hasn't gotten hold of, there are older, mature people who have fresh ideas and that are energetic and that can make a difference. And until society catches up and realizes that value, what we have to do, realize we're in that situation and present ourselves in that manner in which we make relevant.
So it seems like the cycle of, the life cycle of work needs to be redefined because of all of the employables that are out there and those that we compete against. And sometimes we compete against ourselves.
I would say you almost want to compete alongside. So being in a university setting, campus full of millennials. And when we are trying to recruit in terms of an employer, that generation for specific skill sets, for entry-level positions, they are desperate for mentors. And so if you have someone who is a top tier, they're well educated at this point, not yet experienced, but they're well educated, they're someone you see as high potential, and you want to recruit them and they have options between multiple companies, what we see is they're going to places where they're offering mentoring because they're trying to grow and develop. So, you know, sometimes you end up in a place where you can't hire any more of those entry-level people. You can't build that piece of your pipeline unless you have adequate mentors on the other side. So then that's actually a recruitment tool. So I think there's probably some potential there to use that piece to the advantage of the person who's later in their stage in career.
One back here.
Hi, I'm Alexandra Moore. My, I guess, comment sort of about the aging workforce is that a lot of people that are maybe 50 years old or older, maybe they don't even know how to look for a job in today's marketplace. I was talking to some millennials yesterday at the conference, and they were saying now you go through LinkedIn, you see who you know in common, you have somebody send a letter, you go through, you know, so some people I know that never been with a job since the 80s, and now they're out of work. And I think that they don't get right back to work because they really don't even know how to look for a job. The days of, you know, kind of sending your resume in when the 80s, you know, when jobs were plentiful, it's a totally different dynamic. And that's something that I think once people do get laid off, they're probably like, they're in an influx because they don't even know how to get back on their feet.
Right. And that's a very good point. That doesn't totally describe my situation, but what I did do, and there's organizations that's relative to help individuals in various types of organizations. Within 1 year, I went through Operation Hope. I was a Small Business Development Center. I've been with SBA. I've been with the Georgia Tech Procurement Assistance Center. I've been a mentee of SCORE. So I think just raising people's awareness that there is assistance out there, and to be persistent. And this is free. This is free counseling, free mentoring, and a lot of people don't know transportation may be an issue, but whatever resources that are there, use them, and don't be discouraged by them, because there are some resources, not something that's going to solve everybody's problem, but there are some resources out there that can help with the situation.
And we know that we live in an age of technology. So anything we need to know, we can get on the internet and find it. There are resources, there are a lot of awareness out there, and information to help us find anything free or connect us with someone who can help point the way or be a compass for us in our careers in life?
I am a studier of people and their emotions, and you all have a lot of energy. You want to talk from the audience. And what I had originally said is that we would let this panel talk for 45 minutes, but I'd be the bad guy if I said, okay, now we got to go to our tables. So let's shift a little bit. Who likes football? We're going to call an audible. I'm your quarterback. I'm going to call an audible real quickly, and let's just keep going with this flow that we have, and you all keep the questions coming. I will say that with probably about 25 minutes left, we'll go inward to our tables quickly, and then we'll do a report out. Are y'all okay with shifting a little bit? Okay, good.
Okay, and we'll just come out and mix and mingle with you all as you're discussing or coming up with your big ideas. And is that what you want from them, an idea?
Yeah, so thank you for that. I've never been accused of being soft-spoken, but I'm sure in the back you can't hear me. So I thank you for that. Thank you for the reminder. What we'll do, let's continue the dialogue, and then I'll stand up and give you all an indicator. We'll go into our tables. For the tables that have the fewer number of people, you can stay and have a dialogue together. You can join another table, whatever you choose. But what we're going to do when I kind of raise my hand and say, okay, cut, let's go into our tables, and let's think of one idea per table that we want to report out to the group about how we can unlock the economic value of the aging workforce. We've had some great ideas already. If you've already stated what you think is the brilliance of the day, then go ahead and stay with that, okay? You may, through the remainder of this conversation, spark more ideas. Is that okay, Pamela?
Okay. Mm-hmm.
A lot of questions still.
Any questions?
I just wanted to ask, as we've listened to other presenters about the change in the shareholder immediate results, and how that has impacted the release of more mature workforce at a more expensive rate. And does that correlate with what you're talking about here? Do you know what I'm referencing?
I know.
Okay, we had in one of the general sessions where the graph went, where the income was increasing, but the salary was maintained over a 40-year period. And the cause that I heard them say, I think they were saying, was that the shareholders were requiring a more immediate, of the CEOs, a more immediate return on investment.
Mm-hmm.
So has that impacted this issue with the aging workforce being maybe released earlier, or the value of the aging workforce not being valued?
You can respond to that?
Yes, I have a response. I actually work with the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission. I'm an investigator. So if you don't know, it's illegal for companies to discriminate against you because of your age. So one of the things that I like to tell people is be aware. It happens, but pay attention to those clues when you see those things happen. Because a lot of times we have people walk through our doors and they're saying, I was discharged. I know it was because of my age. And these things happened. However, we have to go off of evidence. It has to be data. So when you see those signs, pay attention of that. People fought for these rights. These civil rights laws, they're enforceable. We try not to be combative in what we do. We also go to the companies and we talk to them. It's where we try to say we're impartial. For the most part, we are. Sometimes we are going to fall more to that individual because they're going to give us information that enlightens us to what's going on inside some of the doors of the company. But we try to educate those companies as well so that they don't repeat this again and again. We see that there is a repeat in this. And as this lady said, that's why I raised my hand, it's getting to be an economic thing, the cost of maintaining older workers. But that's discriminative. So just so you know that.
All right.
That's a good point, but the point too is Georgia is a right-to-work state. Okay, now with my job in Buckhead, understood, with my job, my severance my separation said lack of work. That's not true. But you had to sign that in order to get your severance. And within 4 months, 4 to 6 months, my associates have told me that 2 people had my job. So, you know, to come to EEOC and to and the signature that you make in order to get your severance is that basically you're not going to come at them. So.
No, that we can still come after them if we show that the reasons that you were discharged were discriminatory, but for your age. You were able to perform the duties of your job.
Yes.
But for your age, you were discharged, regardless of right to work. People don't know that. Still illegal.
Okay, so let's break out in our group and continue this conversation and
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
and come up with some ideas on how we can leverage all of what we've heard today.
Yes, I don't know if everyone could hear, but according to Apple and my phone, it is 2:41 according to Tim Cook and the satellites. But we are going to go within our table, thank you, for 20 minutes. So at 19 minutes, so at 3 o'clock, let's be ready to report out.
Okay.